Good evening. This is the August 11th Committee of the Whole meeting that was previously scheduled to be a Finance, Facilities, and Operations Committee meeting. If you are participating via computer, smartphone, etc., with video or Zoom, please make sure that when you're speaking, you look into the camera when talking. Please make sure you eliminate and reduce any distractions during the Zoom session by turning off any other external sounds, computer alerts, cell phones, etc. Please be aware of your audio settings to make sure that when you're not speaking that you're on mute. If you're using phone and you're selected to speak, if you sign up to speak, *6 allows you to mute and unmute on your phone. *9 allows you to raise your hand to be recognized for those who have signed up previously. It is a reminder that if you did not sign up to speak during the portion of the public comment, which is period number 1, which is designated for speaking on agenda items, you will not be allowed to speak unless you are recognized for a particular purpose by the board president based on board decision. Speaking is solely based on pre-registration and signing up. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to the board president and secretary.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bedden. So we will begin tonight's meeting with a roll call.
Mrs. Deeroff. Mrs. Deeroff, could you unmute yourself? Mrs. Deeroff, I see you on the screen. I'll go on. Maybe by the end of the roll call, she'll be able to come on. Mrs. Hogan?
Present.
Mrs. Denon?
Here.
Mr. Brophy?
Here.
Ms. Nyman?
Here.
Mrs. McWhirter?
Here.
Mr. Updegrove?
Here.
Mr. Hemingway?
Here.
Mrs. Deeroff? Okay, Mr. Foose?
Here.
Mr. Foose, I don't know how you want to handle that. I can see her on the screen, but she doesn't appear to be able to speak.
I think for the time being, we'll move to the first couple of items, but if she's not able to, if we're not able to get that resolved, I believe the other night we had the ability for her to call in, which seemed to work better.
Okay, so right now we have 8 members present.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Mr. Foose, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that there are 2 Lisa Hogans again. One is my face, one just says connecting to audio.
All right, well, we can hear you, so we'll...
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
I'm here.
Oh, all right.
I got in.
Okay.
Hello?
So,
Yes,
Yes.
okay, Ruth, I'll mark you as present.
Thank you so much.
So,
Sorry.
Mr.
And the
Mr.
second Lisa Hogan has been removed.
all right. So next we will move to Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, so the first item this evening is our public comment period.
Mr. President, can you hold on 1 second while I adjust my screen to prepare for the public comment? Okay.
All right, so for public comment this evening, we have, looks like four people signed up. So I will read our statement right now. On behalf of the Board of School Directors, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. We welcome your attendance and input from stakeholders to assist us with making recommendations and decisions related to the Boyertown Area School District. The procedures and rules for public participation are detailed in BASD Board Policy 006. This document is available at the meeting and at our BASD website. Participants properly registered on the sign-up sheet will be recognized by the presiding officer. The public comment period is limited to topics on tonight's agenda. Participants must preface their comments by an announcement of their name, address, and group affiliation if that is appropriate. All statements, inquiries, or comments shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually, administrative team members individually, school employees, or members of the public individually. Note that we value and will not compromise the privacy of our students and staff. Please see us outside the realm of a public meeting if you have a concern about an individual staff member or student. If your public comment includes a question, Dr. Bedden or a member of his staff will be in contact with you to confirm your question and provide you with information. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and comment periods are limited to 30 minutes. Individuals may indicate a desire to speak a second time if time is left in the 30-minute period. Finally, note that we do record our board and committee meetings and post them on YouTube with a link on our website. We request that if you do wish to take pictures or record the meeting yourself, you do so in a non-disruptive and discreet manner and use those materials respectfully and responsibly. And I just want to point out, again, this was originally scheduled as a facilities and finance. It was changed to a committee of the whole. It is a committee meeting. We only have the first public comment period, and that is specifically for items on the agenda. All right, that being said, we will move over to the people signed up. And first is Mr. Ralph.schaar.
Mr. Schaar, I allowed you in. You can unmute your mic.
Okay, my name is Ralph.schaar from Gilbertsville. I'm a father of a senior at BASH. I also serve on the Parent Advisory Board and on the BASH Bears Task Force. Over 20 districts in less than a 40-mile radius, including Perkiomen Valley, Upper Perkiomen, Pottstown, Antietam, Exeter, Springford, Methacton, Norristown, Upper Marion, Upper Moreland, North Penn, Schuylkill Valley, Cheltenham, Palisades, Central Bucks, Council Rock, Centennial, Pennsbury, Bristol Borough, and Bristol Township have all gone to a virtual opening. In Georgia, 900 students and teachers are quarantined in Cherokee County after an attempted opening a brick and mortar school. COVID cases amongst children have risen 90% in 4 weeks nationwide. And yet, Boyertown is doing a scaffolded opening. I'm absolutely disgusted by the unethical behavior of the board during the August the 6th meeting, where you had a vote that was in blatant disregard of the best interest of student, teachers, staff, and the community at large. And you had a vote.
Mr. Schaar?
Unethical acts. Hello?
Yes, sir. I apologize. I would like to reiterate, this is just for items on tonight's agenda, and I was wondering if if
And then explain to me how this does not apply to the agenda.
tonight's agenda, we have a couple of largely personnel and reorganization items for discussion and vote.
Are you discussing the health and safety plan?
We're getting an update on aspects.
Yeah, health and safety plan ties into COVID, so this is perfectly applicable. But I do realize that because I have ethics complaints about Mr. Updegrove, that you're trying to squash this.
No, sir. No, I apologize. It's not the reason I'm trying to break in here. It's strictly I believe we need to follow the
So health and safety
policy as described.
related to COVID? Health and safety is not related to COVID?
We're not technically doing a health and safety update tonight so much as a program update.
Then you cannot cover health and safety at all, because this ties into health and safety. You need to abide by your own rules. And you know, it's obvious that you're not doing that. Last Thursday was a perfect example.
All right. Yes, sir. I apologize for the confusion on that.
No, then you have to take health and safety off the agenda.
Yeah. Can I get clarification? Is there a specific health and safety update this evening?
It is my understanding from looking at the agenda, there is only an informational update, and the board is not going to be deliberating on that. And the purpose of public comment is to address those items where the board is going to be deliberating. So I would roll.
That is incorrect. You need to look at the Pennsylvania School Boards Association.
I work very closely with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, and I was the former.
Okay, how come there's not an ethics investigation against Mr. Updegrove and his financial interest in going back to school?
He's done.
I'm not aware of any financial investigation, and we have reviewed the State Ethics Act and have concluded that there is no violation of the State Ethics Act.
Oh, so he does not work for the school bus company?
I apologize. I do not have.
This is not on the agenda, and this is not a town meeting.
So you're going to cover up unethical behavior?
I would suggest that we request that we mute this individual because he is now going beyond the scope of the agenda and go to the next individual.
I apologize. I don't have that functionality, so I would need someone else to.
It's been done.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just to reiterate again, public comment period this evening is limited to items on tonight's agenda, and everything in policy 006 still stands regarding conduct and the content. Next, we have Ms. Shanah Black.
I have a Shanah Black. You should be
Yes,
able.
I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm just making sure that my comments align with your agenda. My comments would lie under 6A under your agenda. 6A, COVID-19 instructional plan update. Is that okay?
I
I'm
believe.
not gonna waste my time speaking if,
Yes.
there's nothing to speak about. What am I allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I apologize. I believe our solicitor had just indicated that particular item, although we have an informational update, it is not a deliberative agenda item, and there's no voting action being taken. So I don't believe that is one of the items for public comment this evening.
What is the public allowed to comment about?
All of the other items on the agenda.
So
The superintendent's agenda?
yes. So item 5, we have the acting superintendent contract and reorganization resolution. We also have the PASBO BASD addendum, and then personnel.
Well, then I guess I'm passing on my chance to speak because mine doesn't cover that. But I think this is unfair that you guys are bypassing our right to speak. And it's just unfair. But thank you.
All right. I'm going to move to the next individual. And for those who signed up this evening, yeah, just to reiterate again, a typical voting meeting that is scheduled as a voting meeting will have typically a public comment period 1 and a public comment period 2. Public comment period 1 is for agenda items only, and for committee meetings, that is the only public comment period typically. Public comment period 2 is for any issues related to the school district, and at committee meetings, which this is, that public comment period we do not have. So I apologize if there was any confusion. This is not meant to limit or restrict people. It is following our policy and trying to move along with what we have on our agenda this evening. So next, I have Miss Tammy Updegrove.
Ms. Updegrove?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. So I sent a letter to the school board earlier today, specifically indicating what I was hoping to comment on this evening. So if Mr. Foose, you find it inappropriate, you can certainly mute me at any time. I don't think it's inappropriate, but I am not the bearer of the rules here. So my name is Tammy Updegrove. I live in the New Hanover Elementary area of Region 3, and I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, my husband grew up in Boyertown, graduated from Boyertown, moved away, moved back. My father-in-law, who some of you may even remember, Bruce Updegrove, taught history at the high school, and to this very day proclaims that he never worked because he equated work to something he didn't enjoy, and that during his tenure at Boyertown, he looked forward to teaching every single day and called it fun. My mother-in-law, who others of you may know, taught second grade at New Hanover Elementary and continues to tell me stories of how she runs into former students at Giant or Redner's, and they flag her down just to say hello. Both of my in-laws were teachers, and like any other teacher, they love to teach, and frankly have been trying to pick up the slack of both my husband and I with trying to continue to educate both of our children during the spring virtual session and even through the summer, because neither of us are remotely qualified to do what teachers do so gracefully. But I didn't ask to speak tonight to reminisce of my family's ties to the Boyertown School District. I'd rather speak out of sadness and hopelessness. We as a community have officially failed, myself included. We have failed our kids. We have failed our teachers and staff who work inside brick and mortar schools. We have failed our community. The one thing that we've come together on in recent months is failure. Failure to empathize, failure to think outside the box, failure to see past our political views, failure to actively listen. So shame on us for how we have actually succeeded. How many of us can objectively say that we've listened rather than speak? Listen to our neighbor, listen to the person who has had to physically go to work, listen to the person who has lost their job, listen to the teacher, listen to the kids, listen to the letters, listen to the administration's proposals. Instead, we compare and judge. We compare our situations to others, implying that ours is always worse. We make judgment on others based on political views or any other bias we all have, conscious or unconscious. We have the opinion that if one group of professionals go to work, then everyone else should as well. We all have our own struggles, and although they may be different from one another, they're our own struggles. The only way we can begin to understand each other is to listen, and by listening, we begin to empathize, and when we empathize, we make smarter decisions without the blinders of bias. Decisions can only make us move forward to a Boyertown that we can be proud of. We have completely lost sight of how we cultivate an exceptional, innovative learning community that enables all students to succeed in a changing world because of our inability to listen and empathize, which was...
Time.
All right. Ms. Updegrove, I appreciate you speaking. I believe that this can in some ways touch on our decisions regarding personnel. However, just to also clarify that the board is in receipt of your email. So anyone who has not read the full, or you did not have the ability to get through your entire thing, we do have that email.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have one final speaker this evening. And he is a gentleman by the name of Steve Elsier, which might be familiar to some of us.
Mr. Elsier?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone or hear everyone. On tonight's agenda, in the people section, I believe there's a vote on a resignation. And I just wanted to take a moment to stop and look back and evaluate our district over the last couple years. And with that, I just want to call out several big items and decisions that a superintendent might encounter over their entire career of 20, 30, 35 plus years. Decisions including right sizing, redistricting, if you want to call it that, closing a school, negotiating a transportation or busing contract, negotiating a teacher's contract, one where perhaps the teachers are working without a contract, but still going through the negotiation process. Working through a budget deficit, perhaps starting at $3 or $4 million, and ending up the fiscal year not only not at a deficit, but with some extra money, call it a surplus or whatever term you want to put to it, where there's actually additional monies left over. A tough decision of outsourcing jobs in the school district. Very emotional, very tough, affecting people. Turnover in the central administration. A major stadium project to rebuild a stadium that unfortunately needed to be rebuilt. All of these are difficult, sensitive, and I think we could all agree, major, big decisions. And I just want to point out that Dr. Dana Bedin addressed all of these, and probably some I may have forgotten. He addressed these in his first year and 4 months. He tackled them, he navigated us through them, and led us to those decisions in the Boyertown Area School District. Again, through tough situations. And obviously, some people will not like the final decision. But like any outstanding leader, Dr. Bedin navigated us through these tough decisions.
30 seconds.
Thank you. By presenting the facts, presenting the data, presenting a well thought out decision logic on the various scenarios on what may happen and what the decision was on the outcomes of these decisions. He utilized his resources and his skill set to bring us to a decision. Again, people may not agree or not like all of those decisions, but I hope we can agree on the fact that he led us through tough decisions. He did a good job. Thank you, Dr. Bedin, for the work you've done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Elsier. And that will conclude tonight's public comment period. And again, just one last time, tonight's public comment period as a committee meeting was limited to items on this evening's agenda. So we will move ahead to this evening's agenda with the superintendent's agenda on itemized A, B, and C for number 5.
Mr. President, item number 5A. Item 5A is the subject of BASD Acting Superintendent Contract and Reorganization Resolution. The recommendation is that the board approve the Boyertown Area School District Acting Superintendent Contract and Reorganization Resolution as discussed by the board and developed by the BASD Legal Counsel. You received those documents for review prior to the meeting, and they also are attached for your further review if necessary before you take action.
Thank you. So on that, with that item, I'm looking for a motion.
Hogan motions.
All right, I heard Ms. Hogan and I saw Ms. Nyman. So we'll go Ms. Hogan and then second Ms. Nyman. So any comments or questions on this item? I have Ms. McWhorter.
Yes, we've sat in a couple of executive sessions and we've gone over a lot of information, and I feel comfortable with the decision that we're making. Are we mentioning? Can I mention? Dr. Bedden didn't mention a name, can I? So Mrs. Torsha is well qualified. She's been superintendent of Daniel Boone previously, and she has worked her way up through the Boyertown administration office, and we're excited to welcome her aboard as the acting superintendent. Welcome aboard.
Great, thank you for that. All right, I'm not seeing any more at this time. Similarly, I'd like to just say that for the time that we've spent with Dr. Bedden in the district, I greatly appreciate his professionalism, the tough things that he had to take on immediately as he stepped into the Boyertown Area School District. I believe one of the first things he had to help manage, and it was managed jointly, was a potential threat in one of our buildings, and Ms. Torsha was there to assist with that as well, which we're coming full circle. Here she is taking over for him in his leave. But I really appreciate the work that he's done. Wish him all the best at Centennial. And together as a board, we did take this very seriously. We prioritized this. We know that this is a very uncertain time for people, and we're looking for capable leadership and someone who we believe absolutely within our ranks is able to lead us through a very difficult time, and give people a sense of calm and certainty that we will be providing a great education under the circumstances. And I think that we're all very confident in Ms. Torsha and excited to have her in this role. All right, so if there are no other comments, we'll move to the vote.
Mrs. Deeroff.
I vote twice for her.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan.
Yes.
Mrs. Denon.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
100% yes.
Mrs. McWhorter.
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway.
Yes.
Mr. Foose.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
All right, once again, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Item number 6B is a PASBO BASD addendum to the ISB service agreement to be effective August 12th. This is the item that is just meant to support additional hours for the acting chief human resource officer. The recommendation is that the board of school directors approve the addendum to the current PASBO BASD ISB service agreement with an effective date of August 12th.
All right, looking for a motion and a second on this item.
Then it moves.
All right, I heard Ms. Denon, and then I saw Ms. McWhorter out of the corner of my eye. So we will go Ms. Denon with the motion and a second from Ms. McWhorter. Do we have any comments or questions on this item? All right, seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the vote.
Mrs. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhorter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Foose.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Item number 9C is the personnel action. You have 2 resignations, 1 professional, 1 classified, a change of employment status with Daniel for 1 professional employee, 1 professional FMLA leave of absence, 1 sabbatical leave of absence for a professional employee, and 2 uncompensated leaves of absence, 1 professional employee, and 1 classified employee. The recommendation is that the Board of School Directors approve the personnel items as presented tonight.
Ralph moves.
I have Ms. Deeroff with the move and with the motion, and I saw Ms. Nyman with a second. Do we have comments or questions? I see Ms. Denon and then Ms. McWhorter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that I will very much miss Dr. Bedin. As Mr. Elsier so eloquently stated, he took the helm when a lot of very, very difficult decisions needed to be made. And he did it with professionalism and grace, and I very much appreciate that. In addition, Dr. Bedin, I think most of us know, was the first ever African-American person of color to lead our district. And I think he brought a much needed sense of diversity and understanding to this district, in a district that does not necessarily have the best reputation. And I think it took a lot of bravery and a lot of courage on his part to come and put his best effort forward to lead the district. And I just have to say that along the lines of that, I was very saddened that our district immediately did not put out a very strong equity statement. I personally felt that was wrong, especially considering that we had a Black superintendent. So personally, Dr. Bedin, and publicly, I want to say that I think that was a mistake, and I'm sorry the board did not see to put out a stronger statement. But I do appreciate all of the work that you have done for this district, and especially bringing a sense to this district about the need for social emotional learning. And as I've been on this board, I have learned so much about how children learn, and that if they are not there emotionally, mentally, physically, if they come to school hungry, if they have issues at home, that those are all barriers to learning. And I am thankful that you have educated this board and this community with the importance of doing that. So in your short time here, I really do appreciate and thank you for everything that you have done for this district. And I really wish you the best at Centennial.
Thank you. Ms. McWhorter.
So I too just wanted to thank Dr. Bedin for the past 9 months. Every Thursday I've sat down with Mr. Foose and Dr. Bedin, and I have gotten my own private education on how the school district works. Thank you very much for all the knowledge that you have shared with me and with Brandon. I wish you well at Centennial. I personally will miss our discussions. So thank you very much.
I don't know if I was on mute or not. Next, I have Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Foose. I also wanted to thank Dr. Benham for his professionalism, his leadership, his guidance, and for all of the hard work he's done with the district. It is truly appreciated. I always tell my children that leaders lead, they don't make excuses, and they take responsibility, that they're accountable. And I think that Dr. Benham has proven himself to be an excellent leader. So I thank him for that. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And seeing and hearing no other comments at this time, we'll move to a roll call.
Mrs. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Foose.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Mr. President, the next item is the update related to the instructional plan. You should be able to see my screen at this point. Can you verify that?
Yes, it is visible now.
To make sure that we are all on the same page to understand why we're here, this is about the key information that is being provided for information and discussion only. No action was being recommended to be taken. This item was tagged as that information and discussion. The purpose was to keep the school board informed of changes as directed by previous conversations with the board. And it was determined that that would be done with a combination of weekly reporting and school board meetings. Tonight, what will be covered is the new information on the Commonwealth's new instructional model recommendations during the COVID-19 pandemic, which was received yesterday. The board received immediately upon notification that we received from the state around 1:14 p.m. an email informing them that they will be updated today on that new information from the state. It also has just key reminders that we won't go into detail, but are relevant and update data on the community spread, which is we always give you whenever we do any presentation, which is the latest information, which is still the same previous chart, just with the latest data that we have available. It is also providing information that the board or member requested during our last meeting, asking for additional information on the instructional model and how it was being done. So the OTL team is providing another example of what that may look like, a best guess of what the question meant and what the person may have wanted to see regarding the instructional model. The board or member also requested additional information regarding the survey. If you recall at the last meeting, the survey results were not complete at that time. They were hot off the presses. This will provide you the final survey data that was started at the last meeting. We also had a board member during the last meeting request an update on human resources capacity and the changes during that meeting and the possible impact. You will get an update on the latest information regarding that. The only new information, which is anytime there's an operational development, we try to make the board aware of, is just to make you aware of what the plan is for the food service program and the meals and the distribution process that is being considered to continue to meet the needs of our students. As always, this is tied to locally to our two goals about a responsible data-informed decision-making, and also to provide a positive, safe, and healthy learning environment. And we can't say it enough that things keep changing every day, every hour. There's constant change with new information or new data coming forward. This is, again, previous to makeup of the team. We try to keep these slides here for people who may come in to the process a little bit later than others. And then the biggest thing is that this is a dynamic culture and situation that we want to remind people of. You know, the CDC, nothing's changed with that. Everything is the same with that updates and reminders. It is important to note, because of the new release from the state, some key information. The first and foremost is that the Pennsylvania Department of Health did articulate that a percent positivity rate is an important metric because it takes into account the total number of positive tests and the total number of tests that are given. It is also important to note that it was said that anything under 5% is considered suppression of the virus. That is a measure that has been used and articulated by the state. Additionally, it is a measure that was articulated by Valerie Arkosh, who is a medical doctor in Montgomery County, but also the chair of the Montgomery County Commissioners. She also attends a number of our superintendent's meetings, updating us from a medical professional's view and the impact on the county. There are technical notes that are important. There are more than just these three, but these are the pertinent ones that I think that are important for tonight, rather than going over all of them. And that is to understand the definition of a difference in confirmed cases, the incidence rate, which is per 1,000 residents, and then the PCR percent positivity rate. I will not be reading those. This is obviously available. It is posted for the public for them to go back and review it should they want to read and further delve into the definition. This information has been previously provided from us as an administration because we're already using data-driven decision-making. It is highlighted again because it is an integral part of what the state just rolled out as one of their part of their metric system. The good news is that we were already there using this metric inside our district. And that is, again, about the PCR positivity rate. We continue to monitor the community spread as of 8/10. The key metrics that we monitor is the number of Burke cases and then the previous 14-day total because of the previous target of opening of 210. Again, another metric and data point that previously had been used by the state. We continue to get data and monitor that through the BCIU. What's changed or what's new? The items in red are really the key things that are important. That, again, a reminder that this is a dynamic situation with the pandemic, and that the plan, no matter where we are in it, has to be flexible. The state metrics have changed as part of the health and safety concerns. Meaning state metrics haven't changed, they have been developed now as part of the health and safety concerns. Obviously, COVID-19 data continues to evolve. A key component that superintendents in both Montgomery and Berks County, in fact, across the Commonwealth, is the human resource capacity and its relationship to the FRACA law. You heard a little bit about that last week. That is coming into play with what HR will share with you later. We have new information with more survey final results from the transportation and its capacity. The changing operational piece is the new information about how we will deliver food service. And the landscape continues to change around the surrounding jurisdictions, and a significant part of that is how that plays out with the FRACA law that may impact BASD with its staffing. So PDE reopening update was a release of the metrics that they provided yesterday. We had, as superintendents and many others across the Commonwealth, had been asking about the state developing some key metrics for school districts to consider. These are recommendations for pre-K through 12 schools. The information is tied into the COVID-19 early warning monitoring data system dashboard, which is a source that we've been using also already in the district to pull our data from and to drive data-informed decision-making. A key component is that if fewer than 10 new cases are reported in the most recent 7-day reporting period. That will be the biggest determinant factor for a district to be in the low level of community transition. The state also released 3 instructional model definitions, full in-person, blended hybrid learning, which is what our scaffold hybrid model fits within. That model is about the number of students in school. Building is reduced to allow. So we have reduced the number of students with the goal of trying to reach the 6 feet. I'll remind everyone that if you go further into it and when you see that model and click on the PDE website, it will take you further into the clarification of what that means with regards to social distancing. But I have pulled it out to be clear here because people still are uncertain or sometimes confusion around the 6 feet. And then, of course, full remote learning model are the three overarching structural model definitions they have now rolled out. As I said earlier, to drill down deeper about social physical distancing measures, the key component is that the 6 feet is about the maximum extent feasible. There is still conversation locally with regional health departments, with national medical professionals with regards to the 3 feet to 6 feet dynamic. In BASD, the conversation has been that we try to make sure that the goal is to try to get 6 feet, but create a situation that we're no less than 4 feet from nose to nose within our students where we can't meet the 6 feet standard, which is why it was added maximum extent feasible by PDE and many other healthcare organizations nationally. The new metric that was released has 3 categories: low, moderate, and substantial. Again, there are organizations and states, including Commonwealth, that consider 5% or lower for at least past 14 days as a good data point. The data points measured are the incidence rate, the percent positive rate, the Burke's cases, and the previous 14-day total that we were already using in BASD for our data-informed decisions. A week ago, the incidence rate was 40.7. The positivity rate was 2 weeks ago was 5.6. A week ago, on August 7th, the incident rate was 38.8, but a percent positivity rate of 4.5%. It was also noted that there's potential that the data point of last week may or may not have been influenced by the storm outage that occurred last week. BASD, like a number of districts, fall within the moderate rate because you can see that we're at 38.8 in the incidence rate and that we are sitting at, in this case, below 5%, but we did not meet the threshold of incident rate. In that model, the recommendation is a choice between blended learning or full remote learning model. The key conversation as articulated to the board last week was that there really should be a specific board workshop to probably talk about what are the comfort zones for the board locally to consider for the metrics that are important to them. Because the state has given guidelines and choices or type choices as you see in a statement, I think to help local decision making and people understand why or when the district is going to make certain decisions, it will probably be helpful to actually have a conversation and have defined clear metrics that will be driven to make decisions about which instructional model will be in place at what point in time based on the conditions of the COVID-19 in the community. The state also shared information about transitioning between instructional models. A county's corresponding threshold will change week to week, which you have seen just an example in the previous slide. The other important note is that there can be a significant and widespread outbreak. Should that happen, the district may need to act quickly to go to a remote-based model should there be a significant impact in growth in coronavirus spread. There are a number of answers, key FAQs that were offered. The link is down at the bottom. The 2 main ones that we believe that were significant to this presentation, rather than going through all of them, was the question of what if a school is located in more than one county, which it applies to us. The recommendation from the Department of Health and PDE is that you use the county with the highest level of transition. And that is done because of the fact that, simply stated, the pandemic does not respect county boundaries. And in our case, we have one county which is much lower, and the PCR positivity rate, which is Montgomery County, but higher on the Berks County side. And of course, our students go from different side to different counties, lines, depending on where the school is located and where they may live. The other question that was key was, what should a school entity do if the level of transmission changes week by week? They recommend to wait to see the results from a 7-day reporting period before considering a change. Again, the reminder is, and you may need to go longer, depending on what that change looks like, to wait again. But again, monitoring that and be prepared to move quickly should there be a widespread outbreak in the pandemic infectious disease rate. At this point, there will be some key conversations about specific departmental information that was requested during the last meeting by the board that Mr. Stout will speak to.
Thank you, Dr. Bedden. So just to reiterate, I'm going to go through a lot of this information relatively quickly and only highlight the new points of information. The statement that, maintaining our safety is key. A conversation question that has been put out to or put forth by many families is, when is our district going to be communicating information to families? The administrative team worked diligently today to collaborate with the support of Mrs. Moyer to come up with a very large document that is going to communicate a lot of information to our families by the end of the week. So our goal is that that will be pushed out by the end of the week for our families. Just to highlight the reminder that what our scaffolding plan looks like, there is no new information on this slide from the previous presentation, but just a reminder of what we talked about in the past. Next slide, please. Again, prior to last meeting, there were some questions about pre-K. So we continue to just remind our families about our pre-K program. Next slide, please. Also reminding our families, this slide is redundant from the previous presentation, but just talking about the two virtual options that we have within the Boyertown Area School District, the Boyertown Virtual Learning option, as well as the Berks Online Learning option, as a reminder of what they encompass. And just the comparative chart between the two options is the same information we shared from before. This is new information. So everybody understands on the school board, we closed out our survey results last Friday. So prior to our meeting on Thursday, we did not have complete survey results. So we have been able to pull the data together. You're talking upwards of pushing 5,000 data points, compiling it and pulling it together to come up with some reports. So I will try to simplify all that information tonight. The first data point is a technology question that was put out there to our families. Currently, we have 911 families at the elementary school level that would need a device moving forward. I can tell you that from a district perspective, Mr. Iannelli and the IT department are working diligently behind the scenes to make sure that all of our students will be having access to a device in the early parts of this school year. As you'll see a little bit later on, the purchase of Chromebooks is a little bit delayed, but we're hoping that we have a substitute plan in place to help support those students. One other element that's a key component to the data that was collected is parents reported out that approximately 65 families, 65 students, remember each one of these data points is reflective, supposed to be reflective of one student within our district. So 65 students in our district don't have a high level of internet to allow for virtual learning. Next slide. Calendar adjustment, we talked about this. I just need to remind the board that we are working diligently day and night to plan professional learning for our teachers, starting on the 19th and 20th of August, and then the whole week of the 24th through the 31st. It's going to be a combination of synchronous learning, face-to-face learning, as well as collaborative learning that's going to happen. I want to point out the third bullet down there. That is new specific information. We have decided to move towards some digital content purchase that is fully funded by the Elsier grant. We had discussed this in previous meetings, that we were awarded, I believe, over $500,000 for our Elsier grant for numerous capacities to help support our district, from everything from health and safety to virtual. For approximately $107,000, more than that, $107,470. Sorry about that. We are going to utilize these platforms to provide supplemental and consistent virtual tools for our Boyertown Area School District teachers. So we want to make sure that we not only provide the professional learning, we also want to provide digital content for our teachers to be successful in this process. These are highly recommended programs that are part of many virtual opportunities with other districts. And again, I can't emphasize enough that this is content to provide supplemental virtual support for our teachers. So we're at the point that we committed to BCIU to move forward with that, and we're going to provide multiple days of training for our teachers for that. So that's one highlight from the professional learning and calendar adjustment. A couple board members had asked the question in the previous meeting about being able to see an actual virtual lesson. So we reached out to Mr. Nicholas Idle, one of our Boyertown science teachers, and he graciously volunteered to provide some virtual experiences for our board members to participate in. The first link is for a parent guide to Google Classroom. What I'm going to do is just have Dr. Bedden play this just for a little bit, because this video is a little bit lengthy. I think the second video is more relevant to the specific questions that the board asked for to actually see a virtual lesson and what that might look like. I'll share with the board that the goal is that soon after this meeting, in the next couple days, these web links will be posted on our website, so you will be able to peruse them at your leisure. So Dr. Ben, if you just want to click play just on that one too. I think the audio at the bottom might be muted, Dr. B. I see a line through the virtual lesson and what that might look like. I'll share with the board that the goal after this meeting in the next couple days, these web links will be posted on our website, so you will be able to peruse them at your leisure. So Dr. Ben, if you just want to click play just on that one too. I think I'm hearing myself. I think the audio at the bottom might be muted, Dr. B. I see a line through the virtual lesson and what that might look like.
Let me go back. Hold on, Mr. Stout.
That's okay, Dr. Ben. If you go to the second link, it's probably more relevant. We can watch that lesson in its entirety. For those board members, a few months ago, Google Classroom, I invited the board members that were on the board previous to the last board, and we actually joined a Google Classroom and participated in that. So that was kind of an exciting time for that workshop that we had done. So Mr. Idle does give an overview of what Google Classroom is about. The second video, the example, is the one we'll watch tonight, and that is a specific example of what in Mr. Idle. Now, reminder that this is Mr. Idle's representation of a lesson, but if you are a learner, this is what you might expect to see. So hopefully this provides some clarity with respect to a virtual lesson. So go ahead, Dr. B.
Hi, my name is Nick Idle. I'm a biology teacher at Boyertown Senior High School. I'm going to walk you through what teaching is going to look like this year under Boyertown scaffolding or virtual model. And realistically, whether the students are live brick and mortar in school or if they're signing in virtually, the models are going to look almost nearly identical for students. So the biggest benefit that Boyertown's model has is that whether they're in school or whether they are logging in from the computer, there's always going to be somebody on the other end. The style is called synchronous, which means it's kind of live. So teachers have the ability to get to know their students and build relationships. They get to understand the different types of learning styles that all the individual students have. Students, on the other hand, not only get to know their teacher, but they get to help build types of learning communities with each other, as well as different relationships with other students. So going through a typical class period, it's important again to say, all students, whether they're brick and mortar or whether they're virtual, are going to follow the same routines and they're going to have the same experiences. So a typical class period might look something like this. Students come in and automatically jump onto the Google Meet, and Google Meet is kind of like a Zoom. It's going to be our new meeting place for everybody. We're going to start off with some type of icebreaker, getting to know you. This is so that the teachers can learn about the students, and the students can learn about each other, and they can learn about the teacher. These aren't going to just take place in the first week. It's something that's going to take place throughout the entire year. Then the teacher's going to move into some type of review of the concepts from the previous day. They're going to introduce new concepts, and they're going to have application of those new concepts with some type of feedback. Teachers are going to be using best practices when it comes to concept delivery, which means variation. Teachers could be showing videos, they could be doing direct instruction, they could be showing animations, they could be analyzing text, they could be analyzing images. All of these different modes of delivery are going to be used. Then they're going to give some time to start their assignments, and then there'll be some type of closure activity at the end to kind of wrap up the assignment. Finally, this model is going to be providing feedback, and providing feedback helps students understand where they are with their learning. It's going to help them with different learning opportunities and tutoring opportunities. So this is going to take place both formally and informally, and teachers are going to rely on providing a lot of instant feedback to the students. What I'm going to do now is kind of walk you through some of the tools and best practices that we're going to be using. All students, when they log in, are going to be heading to their class's Google Meet. So here it is for my biology period 2 class. And this is the teacher view, and it looks very, very similar to what the student view is going to be looking like. So every student, when they log in, they're going to head here, and right there is the link to their Google Meet. It's going to be unique for every one of their classes. A Google Meet, as we said before, looks very similar to a Zoom. So from here, I'll be able to see all of my students. I'll be able to see their faces. If I want to share my screen with them, I can share my screen, whether it's a presentation. If I need them to share a screen with me, they can do that. I can also run breakout groups with my students. So I can have small groups of students get together within Google Meet, and I can monitor those different groups. For each class, I'm going to be providing a weekly planner, and this planner is going to be posted not only on Google Classroom, but also on my class website. So it's in a public space that that parents and students can see. So here's a little view of that weekly planner. As you can see here, on the left side is the days of the week. If you click on the dates, it says a little bit of what we'll be learning about and the links to the different assignments that we'll be using for that day. If there's a little Google Classroom symbol, that means that that assignment is locked in Google Classroom. The student has to actually log in to get to it. If there's no Google Classroom link, that means that they can just get there without having to log in. So a couple of the assignments. We talked about the idea that we're going to be using a lot of icebreakers. So here's just one example of playing this or that with the students. It's a very quick exercise. So do you like cake or do you like ice cream? And from here, I'll be able to monitor my students and say, hey, if you like cake, give me the thumbs up. And whether they're in class or whether they're on Google Meet, I'll be able to see that thumbs up. And we can have a little fun discussion about which one they like better and why. This example here is a document that all the students will be working on at the same exact time. So each student will get a slide, and they will write their name on the slide. And then their goal is to take these different types of science and put them in the correct branch. As a teacher, I'll be able to monitor all of my students at the same time by clicking on Grid View. And as the students work, I'll be able to see real time how the students are doing, and I can provide real-time feedback to the students as they work. An example of providing instant feedback to students is something like this. Here they're going to be answering questions, and if they type in the wrong answer, so hypothesis, the cell won't change. But if they type in the correct answer, for example, variable, they get instant feedback that, hey, that's correct. So students are able to go through their work and get that instant feedback. Another example is using a Google form that's set up for remediation. So here the students go through, and they're going to be using this video to help learn about observations and inferences. And then they'll watch a little demonstration and answer a question about it. If they answer the question wrong, it's going to take them to a remediation page. After they do the remediation, they'll go back and they'll try the question again. In science class, we're also able to use different simulations. So this simulation here, we're taking a look at some aliens, and we're going to try to change something about their environment, and we're going to collect some data on how that affects the aliens themselves. Providing feedback is going to take place in a variety of different ways. One way is by actually giving verbal feedback to students. So here I have a document that a student turned into me, okay? And I could use this extension to record my voice and give my students verbal feedback. Other teachers are going to be just making comments on their papers. So here we can say, hey, please expand upon this idea. What form is it in? And then we can go through their papers and we can provide different types of feedback to the students. I hope this gave you a better understanding and a good outline of what teaching was going to be looking like and what learning is going to be looking like under Boyertown's virtual or scaffolding model for this coming fall.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bedden, and I want to thank Mr. Idle for doing, I feel, a phenomenal job at articulating what a biology lesson in his section might actually look like. So moving on to the survey information, which I think is interesting data points to look at from our previous information. On this slide, it's hard to see because the data is small. These are all of the elementary schools broken down by the 6 elementary schools and the data points for each area with respect to the type of instruction people were going to be choosing. If you click to the next slide, Dr. B, we'll show the middle school and then show the district levels because that's not zooming there. There you go. For instance, there was, we'll move on to the next slide. Oh. For instance, there's the example of Earl Elementary School. Let's move on to the next slide, Dr. Bedden. Thank you. So middle school, these are the grade levels that, had replies for Middle School East and Middle School West. You can see the numbers of in-person as well as the numbers of BASD virtual versus BOL versus other cyber, homeschool, and undecided. If you click on the next slide, Dr. Bedden. Here's the high school. But if you look down at the bottom, I think most importantly, you can look at the district totals. It is a little difficult to see. There you go. So we have over 3,064 people. And remember, these are for individual students that are looking for brick and mortar instruction. We had over 4,000, upwards of almost 5,000 total respondents. But you can see the total number of BASD virtual is 949. Berks Online Learning is 311. Other cyber, which would mean parents that are choosing to use an outside cyber institution as a resource, and then homeschool and undecided. I think it's important to note, if you look at the overall totals for everything besides Boyertown brick and mortar, it's approximately 20 to 25% of our population of families per student that were looking for an alternative to brick and mortar. But we updated our numbers for what the actual cost would be for those 107 other cyber kiddos that want to look to an outside cyber. And really important to note, from the lower end of an individual cost per district is $12,500. For a student that could have an IEP with some specialized needs, it could be upwards of $27,000. So we took that 107, multiplied it by $12,500, and over $1.3 million would be the bottom end of potential funding loss to the district. And at $27,000 per student times 107, we put the upwards end of almost $3 million for loss to the Boyertown Area School District. We're going to give very brief updates that we had done from the previous presentation. For the most part, these are just new data points as we are evolving and creating our plans. This is transportation information. I'm just going to communicate some highlights here. The driver meetings for our department with respect to Quigley is now limited to 25 members at each meeting. You can see the dates that they're holding them. So far, we know of a few that are not coming back to transportation, so that's a positive scenario. One of the areas that we talked about with Quigley is requesting the bus driver off the bus as students leave the bus in the AM to avoid extra contact, but we're working on what procedures would look like with respect to our students moving onto the bus and getting off of the bus. And through this process, if any board members have any questions about any of the information, I know Mrs. Batten is a panelist on this presentation. They would like to know what parents that are calling based upon the information we sent out about opting out until they can no longer drive their children. And I think this is a key point because I'm going to show you some very powerful statistics based upon our survey information about how many parents will be opting out of transportation for this past year, for the upcoming school year. Bus runs are changing quickly due to students and the switching to non-public schools. So again, it's a fluid situation. Non-public schools are currently offering virtual, but not have given us those who are in need of transportation that are going full virtual. So we're still up in the air as far as what some of our transportations may need. Rosters are going to be done shortly, but they are literally changing almost by the minute, and we can't print them, get them accurate enough, fast enough to get out to our bus drivers. And just as the storms came through our area recently, there are some alternative roads that need to be taken due to some of the roads actually being closed within our district parameters. This, again, redundant information from the past, but I think it's important to note that we are really getting no clear guidelines from the state. As a case or breakout detected on the bus, we would be following the guidelines and be making our specific phone calls to help get support provided for us. Our current strategy is to contact the entire bus population once we get a report. However, that could take a few days, and initial contact will be the seats within 6 feet, students sitting in the rows 2 up, 2 back, and 3 across. Again, we're looking to create the parameters for what those communications would look like. Many unanswered questions from the state level, as Dr. Bedden shared. We finally have a matrix to help support us in our decision-making process. And we don't have a clear indication as to who will opt out of riding for this hybrid model, although we do have our survey data, but we still need to provide and put onto a bus schedule all the students that actually would be on a run. BCTC students, I think this is a big note. Students will be able to get a ride in the AM and the PM. They do not have drivers for midday transportations for BCT students as of today, but we will be providing BCTC students with transportation. And a really important thing that many families might not be aware of, but we do evacuation drills off of our buses. And obviously the procedures and practices to help support a safe evacuation from a bus will need to be monitored with social distancing in mind and mask wearing. And you know, it's not the ideal situation, but we're going to have to be reinventing some of our school procedures for our kids and taking the time to be able to do that. As I stated earlier, I think the transportation survey is a big point that it's important for the board to see. These were all the different options we gave in the survey, and each building is individually noted on this chart. The first grid is Boyertown Area School District transportation, how many families will be looking to have full transportation. The second one is just Boyertown transportation to school. The second one is Boyertown Area School District from school. The fourth option is we're declining transportation at this time. The next one is for childcare, and finally the Walker column. And if you look at the bottom totals, it's very interesting. We had 4,955 total student responses in our survey. Those who are going to be opting for Boyertown area transportation, which means to and from school, is 2,313. And if you look at the decline, we circled that. Those who are going to be declining transportation is 2,036 students. So it's almost in half, a split down the middle. And again, we have to be very cognizant of our kiddos' status could change at any time, But that's a pretty big impact if we have half of our students who participate in the survey not actually needing to utilize Boyertown Area School District transportation. And the assumption would be in those situations that parents would be taking their students to and from school. Next slide, please. Food service, big deal with respect to having a virtual component to our hybrid. Breakfast, lunch meals will be available to students on days they are off campus and learning virtually. I think that's a key component for everyone to understand. Meals will be pre-prepared and pre-packaged to be picked up on the way to the bus at the end of the day. There will likely not be choices or options given because we have to be as efficient as we can to get our students food. Most items sent home will be based on what is on the menu the following days or the take-home menu. So again, we can be consistent. Breakfast and lunch meals will be available to students enrolled in BASD virtual. Those meals must be pre-ordered, and there's an email address up front. And we will be, again, sharing this information out publicly once it's posted on board docs, but it'll be on our website and picked up by a parent, guardian, family, or friend, and times and locations for those pickups and ordering procedures will be determined. And as those of you that have been participating families with the lunch program here within the Boyertown Area School District, I would predict it would be something similar to what that process was. Meals purchased for off-campus, back up, Dr. B, one. Meals purchased for office campus virtual days or BSD virtual will be charged according to the student's eligibility. So it is super important. I can't emphasize enough to have families that are in need to apply for free and reduced lunch, because it really does help to support making sure our students are fed. So please, keep that as a reminder through all of these difficult times that you do fill out the free and reduced applications for our families. And part of that process, if there's any home heating or storing instructions, will be sent home as part of the meals in case there's an ability or need to provide clarification. The next couple slides, Dr. Bedden, we will fly through. Just wanted to highlight that we are working on school menus, so we're working on what those first days of school lunches would be. So you can flip through the next slides pretty quickly, Dr. B.
And it's important to remind the listening audience that this is posted, so you can actually go back and look later, since we're not going to go into detail to see this information, so you'd have an idea. The recommended best practice, though, from safety guidelines from CDC and others, is if you have the ability, of course, to pack your own child's lunch, is a recommendation that helps promote the safety measures that we're trying to implement within the school district.
This information was previously shared for facilities and operations updates, so I won't go over this slide in any detail. The only update from our facilities is that we have not surveyed our staff at this particular time with respect to any individuals who will be seeking leave for any of those circumstances. And I'm going to update very shortly the information from Human Resources with respect to the district as a whole. The Human Resources update, and again, Ms. Richard is on this Zoom session, so if there's any specific questions, you can certainly reach out to her. But some of this information was shared from our previous meeting, and we had predicted that there would be potentially new cases for teachers that might be looking for some sort of leave. So if you go down specifically on the third bullet, we have 5 teachers that we're waiting for maternity leave paperwork on. And the fourth bullet down, I think, is a new component that is a powerful data point to look at. We have 64 teachers at this particular time and 1 classified employee who have requested leave information. And at this time, they're considered initially presumptive and possibly valid until review and application process is completed. So they are in the beginning stages to be taken into consideration for what that leave might look like. The 5th bullet down there talks about the rationale for some of these leaves to health concerns, medical, maternity, FMLA, uncompensated leave, sabbatical, compensated leave, COVID cases, etc. And some of these leaves will start at the beginning of the school year and end during the year, and some leaves will conclude at the end of the school year. As we stated in our previous presentation. It does include teachers across many elements in our school district, from special education to science and specialized areas. So if you total the data from the previous presentation versus the new information that is given here, we are looking at potentially up to 82 teachers that are a process before final approval to provide an accurate number, but that's the number that we are currently working with. And the current known valid total pending receipt of paperwork is actually 17. So those are the ones that are actually following through with the process in this whole realm. Again, just back to our point, and that is the end of our update for the night. I don't know if there are specific questions. Like I said, many of these specialized area stakeholders are on this Zoom session if there are specific questions.
Mr. Foose, I have a question.
All right. Yes, please go ahead. And then I have Ms. McWhorter.
Okay, I just have one quick question. The 107 students that you said were going to outside cyber, is that in addition to the ones that we already have in outside cyber? And if
Yes.
so, what would the total be that we have in outside cyber currently?
Go ahead, Mr.
I was going to say, Mrs. Duroff, we're working on enrollment numbers right now. So we last year, at the tail end of the year, we were upwards of 130, 140 students within our BOL program. So that number of 107, if we added on to that, we'd be talking over 200. We could be pushing 300 students in our, so outside cyber, I apologize, I'm talking about BOL. That is a number that I don't have as far as how many students were out in our outside cyber for last year. I can easily get that number and put it in the update. So it would be in addition, because these students are students that are currently enrolled in the Boyertown Area School District and would have the IC Infinite Campus accessibility. So it would be an increase of that many from outside cybers.
So Ms. Duroff,
thank you very much.
Yeah, Ms. Duroff, don't hold me to it, but from recollection, it's typically around about 150, I think.
Yeah.
For outside. So
is that total then, or is that?
No, the 150 is to your question about what we currently. Yes. Okay. And that's running about 2 million to 2.5. And then so the 107 would be in addition to, and depending on their classification, you would add the 1.3 to the 2.3 million, depending on their class with the range. So we could be pushing anywhere from $3 to almost $4 million now, should all of them stay there. There is a concerted effort, a collaborative effort that is being launched with, we believe all 18 school districts are being in Berks County. We do know that 17 have confirmed to collaborate on resources. You will soon see billboards and marketing promoting the Berks County schools online programs to be competitive in educating the community to stop the loss and drain of students to outside charters. The BCIU is facilitating that because if we all chip in, no one has a lot to contribute. And we feel like we've got to do a better job of promoting the resources and opportunities that exist within our school districts.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next I have Ms. McWhorter, followed by Ms. Hogan and Ms. Denon.
Yeah, so my first question has to do with the 6 feet. Before we were looking at 4 feet to 6 feet or 3 feet to 6 feet, and now we're at 6 feet. How did we get there?
That is the information that came out from the metrics guidelines. We are still at the same place we were before. We can't get 6 feet. That is, again, when they release the metric guidelines and those statements, the goal is always going to be 6 feet if feasible. And that's why I drilled down and went farther into the definition. Because when you see the metrics released by the state, and then you click on the link that talks about the social distancing, it takes you further to add and clarify their position of where feasible.
All right, so is this going to be an issue that we're not at 6 feet?
It's where feasible, so it's not an issue. We're not in compliance if you see means something like that. It's an issue that nothing's changed. We can't get 6 feet across the board, but it doesn't mean that we're, that's why they put to the extent feasible in there. They know and realize that districts can't get it, and that's not just unique to us. That is a consistent conversation between 18 superintendents in Berks and the 22 in Montgomery County. That it's a significant challenge. So everyone tries to where they can, but it ranges, from 3 feet to 6. We opted, and our team went in and tried to set up all of our situations where we stay between the 4 to 6 feet range. Again, 4 feet, they targeted, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Beth and Mike, the 4 feet was nose to nose in the student, and each desk was no closer than 3 feet to each other.
That is correct, Dr. Bedden.
So where we can get it, we go for the 6 feet, but that's not doable. Like Earl is one of our significant challenges because of the small classroom sizes there. Unfortunately, when you go around and look at our buildings, their age and design, they're not consistent across the board.
All right. My second question is that you have 65 students that need internet access. Thoughts on how that's going to happen?
We have a great question. We have reached out. Mr. Rinelli is in the process of investigating hotspots and the availability for them. He does have some contacts for what that would look like, but we also want to make sure that we vet what those families that actually need the connectivity and come up with a process for determining how we might be able to support them in that process. So we are in the preliminary process of evaluating that.
All right, and then the last one is the number of teachers and staff that are going to be, that right now have filed paperwork. It's the 82, it's over 10%.
Ms. Richard is going to speak to that, and I want to be clear, they either submitted a request for paperwork and information. I want to be clear that you can't say they filed yet. Part of the process is, which takes longer, is they're sitting down and meeting with them to have the information sessions to answer their questions so that they can make an informed decision. That's why we start with the terminology we're using is presumptive valid until she hears what it is, what type of leave they're looking for, and then go over the evidence that they provide to support it. As you know, Mr. Sultanic articulated at, I think, 2 meetings ago, and then I think Bonnie Young reiterated that there's a process. You can't just say, I'm not coming because I'm fearful, or so HR has to meet with them and discuss what it is that what type of leave they're requesting and go over the standards that they have to meet to qualify for that type of leave. Ms. Richard?
Sure. Lori is the benefits person, excuse me, and sometimes Heather's involved also in the conversation that we've met with approximately 25 to 30 teachers already. And we have a lot more on the schedule because we need to meet with them individually because, depending on their circumstances, we certainly don't want to meet as a group. So we meet with them individually. They relay to us what the circumstances are with their health or their family. We discuss with them if they can do the FFCRA Act, or we go through all the options that they might have, and which could be an uncompensated leave, it could be an FMLA, it could be a medical sabbatical. At this point, they cannot take a professional sabbatical because that paperwork needed to be turned in by March 1st. If they have sick leave, which several of them have a lot of sick time because they haven't used it, they could use their sick time with the doctor's note. And of course, all of these leaves, anything medical, would need a doctor's note, and we have those forms that need to be completed before anything can be done. We do review the forms, and if we do have any questions, with what they have submitted. We do contact the doctor just to make sure that everything is, the T's crossed, the I's dotted, and that everything's, fine. And, I just need to say that the teachers have been so respectful and so appreciative of us going through that individually and one by one. So at this point, we have a few changes as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon. There are 2 teachers now on that list that are thinking of either retirement or that they are not going to take any type of leave. But there are quite a few teachers that are of course questioning when we meet with them, are we going to go virtual? And I tell them at this point, you heard the board vote, no, we're going to the scaffolding plan. But if you go virtual, I might not need leave. Well, once they've decided on the leave and that leave's been approved, that's what they need to go by. So, they've made that decision and we have to stick by that. So again, we have received probably about 6 forms at this point, but we have given a lot more out, and I do expect that we will have a lot more. So we have they've had a total of 63 because those 2 had left and we had gained 1. So that's where we're at this point. The total of 63, and that 63 does not include the 12 that had already been scheduled for a leave, and that will probably, some of those leaves will end the beginning of the school year. So we're working diligently on ready. We have talked today, Heather and I, about the substitutes using our TPEs that have been furloughed and getting all our ducks in a row as far as those long-term subs, the building subs, and any other subs that we can get, and get them interviewed and approved. So you'll be seeing a list of people to be approved at the next board meeting. Hope that helped.
Yeah, I'm just nervous about not having enough teachers as we move forward. I'm done.
All right, thank you. Next we have Ms. Hogan and then Ms. Denon.
Thank you, Mr. Foos. I have a question about, so if we go virtual, those teachers who applied for leave still have to take that leave. That's correct, Mrs. Richards? Mrs. Richard, I'm sorry.
Yes, they would, because we've already scheduled another individual to take their spot. Now, I don't know if Mr. Sultani can help answer that question too. I mean, once that leave's been approved and scheduled, they need to stick by that leave. Is there anything that I'm missing there, Mr. Sultani?
You're correct generally, unless we can build in something into our long-term substitute agreements that give us flexibility, but that will be a difficult thing to administer from your perspective.
I know.
So we're going to have to examine the efficacy of doing that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So when we are looking for long-term subs, which I have the feeling that in the current market is not going to be easy to find them, would you say that's correct? There's going to be lots
that is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing that we want to look for first is those people that are certified. Now, when I look at the list of subs that were on our list last year, there's quite a few people on there that have very many different certifications. So, but have they already been approved at another district? So that's why we want to get on top of this right away. Although we can't move forward until we have paperwork and people that have turned it in. So we're at a standstill until we know officially who's going to be taking leave. So, we're really have our hands tied, but we want to make contact with the subs that we used last year and the subs that, the TPs, of course, and just make sure that we have them on standby. We want to do our best to get these positions filled, whoever decides to take the leaves, and that we have them. I don't know what else to say. I know that all the districts are having the same problem with getting people to fill these positions.
Right, that's what I thought. So then, say we had a high school math teacher who was on leave for whatever reason, and we could not fill that position. We just could not find a certified math teacher to fill that position. We would then, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we would then put a non-certified teacher into that position. Is that correct?
We would put a certified teacher, hopefully in that position, that might not be certified in math. And we might have to emergency certify that teacher to teach math. Mr. Soltanic's shaking his head.
Okay.
We can't just put a teacher in like that kind of position and they might be an elementary teacher. We would have to get them emergency certified so they would be able to qualify to teach that subject.
What is the process to get a teacher emergency certified?
Paperwork through PD. Paperwork, they need to fill out paperwork through the PDE, and we need to approve it then. And we do put in an expedite through PDE, and hopefully they honor that and move things quickly. I have a feeling with what's going on, that process might be a little slower because there's going to be a lot of schools that might be using that process. The other thing too, we are using the Berks County Intermediate Unit Guest Teacher Program. Those people in there are usually have bachelor's degrees and are not certified, but every now and then they do have some people that come in that program that are certified. But you know, that's another program that we do utilize.
So when we're doing an emergency certification, that teacher is not receiving any additional instruction on how to teach that subject. It's more of a paperwork thing. Is that correct?
Besides the PD that can be done by teaching and learning office and the principal and whatever the building itself can do, of course you want to try to get somebody. The principal would certainly want to interview and try to get somebody with the skills, some of the skills that are needed. Like, I know what you're saying as far as a math teacher, you want to have somebody with some kind of skills. You can't just put anybody in that position. So we wouldn't just place anyone in that kind of position. We would really look for somebody as qualified as possible.
Right. But it looks like the market's going to be very competitive.
Right. And we do have a math teacher, well, that we have on standby. That is, if we need one, we have one. So, you know, kudos that we have one ready to go if we need them.
Right. Okay.
And we have her like, hey, you're going to work for Boyertown, so don't go anywhere else.
Hopefully they stay and don't go somewhere else. Someone had brought something up to me when they were talking about moving students throughout the building. So if we're moving students to the cafeteria, or if we're moving students to, you know, outdoors for some time outside, and they have to keep those students 3 to 6 feet apart. How are teachers expected to be able to keep an eye on 25 to 30 kids who are spread out 3 to 6 feet? It would seem like it's a safety issue to me.
Mrs. Hogan, in what capacity are you referring? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, sure, no, I understand. Just like to say, you know, like when, for example, elementary students, they go out to the playground or they go out to outside for whatever reason, fire drill, anything, for whatever reason, they have to exit the building. And they're moving through the hallways. I'm assuming they have to remain socially distanced as they move through the hallways. Mm-hmm. So if we're moving, say, 25 first graders through a hallway 3 to 6 feet apart, how is the teacher supposed to safely do that when, you know, if you have a line of kids, 25 kids, 3 to 6 feet apart, you can't see the back from the front. There's no way to really keep tabs on what all those kids, where they are and what they're doing.
Well, with some of the younger kids, some of the techniques that I've seen in kindergarten, first grade classes that teachers have implemented is that they may take a piece of rope or a long stretch of rope, for instance, tying knots, every 4 to 5 feet apart. That would be one way for us to be able to mitigate moving our younger kids around and keeping them socially distanced until they can practice and be cognizant of, their proximity to their peers. That would be one way. I'm sure that there's a lot of other methods, and not to say that in every room that we have multiple adults, but there are many times where, especially in our smaller buildings, where we have students with special needs that have paraprofessionals attached to them, there's often an extra set of eyes. So and I don't want to discount any of the classroom teachers are sitting there and saying, Mrs. Torsha, this isn't happening in my classroom. There is, not a second person, but, in many, situations, there is someone else that, can typically assist with moving kids around that way.
And Mrs. Hogan, let me just add on to that. I think everyone needs to understand that it is going to be beyond imperative for those first couple weeks that we're back in school, that we go back to the basics of what classroom management, classroom organization is going to need to be in this process, because we need to remember that our kids haven't been in school since March. And, thinking about those kindergartners coming in next year and first graders and those elementary school students and even up to the high school, procedures and practices of what is habits of the mind are going to have to be reevaluated. And it's going to take time to break habits. And to Mrs. Torsha's point, we're going to have to think of new procedures and reminders to help support the social distancing guidelines that we need to put forth.
I appreciate that. My concern isn't just the reminders of the social distancing. It's, if we're talking about a first grade class and we're talking about 25 children 3 feet apart, that's 75 feet. And I think that could be dangerous, quite frankly. I think, we have the potential to lose a good amount of teachers and to have an incredibly difficult time replacing them, if it's even possible to replace them at all, especially teachers who, are certified. And, I'm very concerned moving forward with this plan that we are actually going to decrease educational outcomes, not increase them. So that concludes my comments for now. Thank you. I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Okay, next I have Ms. Denon.
So one of my questions, and maybe I misheard this, it said, did you say we have surveyed our staff or we have not surveyed our staff in terms of who's coming back? It seems to me like we know that because of all the paperwork requests, but did BAEA actually, physically do an online survey or whatever that said, okay, the board has approved the scaffolding plan. Who is thinking about not coming back? I mean, just a simple question like that. Have we not done? Has the BAEA not done that? Is it up to them to do that? I'm confused about that.
I think the comment that you're referring, good evening, everybody. Ms. Denon, I think the comment that you're referring to was a comment that I made in the maintenance and custodial staff.
Oh, okay.
I have not surveyed any of those folks, and I know a couple of folks have come to me with concerns about being in the buildings with all the teachers and all the kids. And I just wanted to put it out there that I haven't surveyed the staff anonymously just to see what their feedback was, given 25% of them are 60 or older.
So, okay. So there is a possibility that we may not even have enough people to actually keep the buildings clean and sanitized. Is that what you're trying to get at, Mr. Drescher?
I'm saying we're going to give it our best shot, no matter how many people there are. I'm just letting you know that I've been approached by a handful of people about concerns. That's all that was said to me. They're concerned about it.
Okay.
Nobody has said that they were going to HR to, fill out paperwork or anything of that sort.
Okay. So in terms of, and maybe this is for Mrs. Richards. So in terms of surveying our staff, are we pretty much assuming, let's say, the most it's going to be is 10%. 90% of our teachers are good with coming back, and we're going to have 90% of our teachers back. Is that a fair statement, do you think?
I think 90% is a large amount that are coming back, because we have 63 at this point that have inquired. If we're coming back with the scaffolding approach, those 63 that have contacted us and that we met with and are going to meet with, this is my feeling on those that we met with so far and have contacted us, that they are seriously thinking of taking a leave if we go with this approach.
Okay.
And many of them are health reasons. Many of them are childcare reasons, because the child, they can go with the FFCRA, because if their child's school has gone virtual, that indicates that the school is closed. And if they have no one at home to care for that child, meaning a spouse or a parent or grandparent, then they can apply for the FFCRA Act. So, I mean, that's an option for them. If they don't, though, there's other options that they can take if it's a medical problem, if it's a medical issue that they're concerned about. And we have several of those, that have concerns, valid concerns. So, we have to look at each of them separately. And as I tell each of them when we speak to them, it is not our decision, meaning HR's decision. We can give you what's out there, but it has to be your decision, in the long run, as what you want to do what's best for yourself, your health, and your family.
Yes. So I guess I do understand that, and I understand what the law is, and I'm not, making a judgment either way as to a teacher's personal decision as to whether or not they're going to come back to teach. I guess I'm just trying to run some numbers in my head, and if it looks like it's going to be 82 teachers, and I'm kind of sharing the same concern that Ms. McWhorter is concerned with. However, I'm also looking at the fact that 30% of these students are not coming back. So I mean, I understand about the whole special area thing, and I guess it would be helpful if the teachers were all surveyed and we could know sooner than later how many are going to take advantage of the fact that they have now the child care option and all that. It sounds to me like BAEA did not actually do a survey. They're just leaving it up to teachers one by one to come to you. Is that that's what I'm trying to get at?
I don't want to speak for BAEA membership or their leadership, but I do think that they reached out to their membership and mentioned if they are thinking of doing that they should contact HR. And I think that's why we have gotten the emails from them indicating, to contact us if they had concerns about coming back in this kind of
if I may, this is not just simply an analysis of numbers and metrics, because first of all, it depends who the individuals are, what their area of certification may be, because it could be few in number, but it could seriously impact our ability to deliver the program depending upon where it's at. Secondly, I know there's this over-reliance in surveys. And I will tell you, surveys are generally a very poor methodology to find out what people really want to do when it comes to this kind of leave, because the leave choices are fairly complicated, because it's not just simply saying, I'm going to go on leave. If you go on this FFCRA leave, an employee is going to have to take a significant pay cut. in many instances because you're capped at $200 per day. So individuals have to, when they talk to HR, address that. And sometimes individuals make requests that don't fit properly within a leave request. And the HR group has the difficult task of telling them you're not eligible for a leave. So it is a complicated process, and simply doing a survey, in my opinion, will not accurately reflect the number of people who are actually going to show up to work or who are going to actually come through the leave process. Now that the reality of the scaffolded plan that we have in place has been implemented, I think people are making and asking the tough questions of HR, and that's why Ms. Richard and Ms. Chambers are going to be quite busy over the next number of weeks.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is I think that there seems to be this constant talk about, well, if we go virtual. I mean, the board decision has been made. It was 5-4 vote that it's the majority of the board, and that is the decision that is made. We're going to scaffolding. Period. End of discussion. The only way I think that could be reversed is if the numbers skyrocket. It doesn't look like that's going to be the direction that we are going. So it seems to me that we just have to make it clear to parents and to teachers that Boyertown School District has chosen to go to a scaffolding model and then try to get people to make a decision. I see that there's still some people undecided, even on the parental end, on the student end. And I just think that, you know, if people are holding out because, oh, well, maybe we're going to go virtual, I believe that ship has sailed because the board has spoken. So I guess all of this uncertainty is really hampering, I think, is going to hamper the situation. So, and this uncertainty about custodians coming back. I mean, at some point, you know, people need to commit one way or another. And I'm just wondering when is the deadline going to be that we're going to have people committing to what they're doing. I think we have enough information now. We know that we're not going to guarantee 6 feet of distancing. We know that there is a chance that we might not have enough, you know, Chromebooks. There's a chance that we may run out of cleaning supplies. There is a chance that we're not going to have enough custodians. But with the decision's been made. So we need people to kind of, I think, make a decision. And as a board member, I don't want to be giving false signals that this may be reversed. I think the only way this decision is going to be reversed is if we're forced to, because the numbers skyrocket. And, you know, furthermore, we are depending on the parents to be responsible and take those temperatures. And if I'm correct, we are not going to be quarantining a whole class. If somebody comes down positive with COVID, we're just going to request that they stay home for the amount of time, but we're not going to suddenly, you know, shut things down or tell kids that they can't come to school that day. So I think that we have all the information, enough information, and you know, it is going to be what it is, because the scaffolding model has been what is chosen. So if we're down 82 teachers, we're down 82 teachers. I guess we're going to have to figure out how we're going to, you know, what our plan B is going to be. So I guess that was my main point. And I understand about the surveys and all that. I guess there's just some frustration on my end that it seems like everybody is still in a flux. And I think that, you know, now we need to move forward with the decision that's been made. So, and I know parents are agonizing over it. I understand, but at some point they need to tell us what their decision is. So that's my only.
But Ms. Denham, a couple things. One is I want to be clear, correct something you said. You could get a whole class quarantine. What we said is we will follow Department of Health's guidelines. So we would not make that decision is what we said. So I don't want people to hear that that could not happen. That could happen.
Okay, I misunderstood
It's
that.
already happened in one other state where they've come in and just like you heard earlier. And so that could happen. I mean, you've had a whole football team quarantined in the state of Pennsylvania already.
Oh,
So,
I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
right. No, we would not just do that and unilaterally decide to do that. That would be a conversation with the Department of Health, who would determine how many people and what should happen with regards to that situation. So I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone. What we said is that we would not be independently making a decision like that as a school district. We would follow the guidelines of the conversation with DOH is what the protocol is. So that could happen. Their point is they want to be clear to people that the first reaction is not to say a whole school's going to stay home. That they've said, but depending on the circumstances, they review the data and they make the decision about how many people, you know, what's the span of control or impact that it could have had, and they will give us guidelines on what to do and who to communicate with, who has to stay home if it became a significant incident in the school.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Which is one of the reasons we also, if you remember in the presentation, when we had the 75% capacity, it was not only establishing a quarantine room for individuals, but it's also freed up free rooms that we talked about if we had to move an instructional area and close down a certain area. That was part of the strategy in the health and safety plan that was developed, that we also had vacant classrooms to potentially move you know, people to, or depending on what the guidelines from Department of Health was. Do they leave, stay home? Do we just move to a different area while Mr. Dresser and his team, you know, disinfects and sanitizes the particular area? So the issue that has been the conversation of every superintendent in this state is the human capital and the logistics. If you look at if you look at the health and safety plan, it depends on people. Simple as that. You know, you had a conversation last week about what happens if we don't have a teacher. Well, we can't just simply combine classes anymore. So human capital and operational logistics are a factor. And I would say to the board, as you talk about metrics, that should be a discussion piece. The medical data and your human capital and your logistical data should all be a part of the conversation with metrics, because you can't implement your health and safety plan to the level at some point, depending on the impact of staff. So for example, you saw Mr. Dresser's presentation. We're fully staffed right now, I believe, in his department. But he also has expressed that if he loses 2 people, he's got a problem.
All right, Ms.
Thank you.
Shannon, did you have any other questions?
No, it was just a survey question and the kind of the going with the metrics that 30% less students, 10% less teachers, maybe it was all going to work out. That was kind of my point.
And I do want to remind you that, and Mr. Sultanic, we've talked about this. A parent, we can ask them to commit, but at the end of the day, we're a public entity. They can choose charter today and decide to come back tomorrow. And the same thing with buses. I mean, if we offer bus service, we can't, you know, I think Mr. Stout mentioned that one of the challenges we're getting with the bus scheduling is, you know, we plan on X number, but that could change. And I think his survey captured a little bit of that. If parents say at this point in time, they're going to ride, but it could change later. And that's why we wanted to be transparent with parents. Here's the plan of 2 people to a seat. Here's the plan with children who are siblings sitting together. But if someone shows up at the bus stop who's legitimately met the criteria to ride a bus, we can't tell them they can't get on the bus.
All right. I see Ms. Hogan has her hand up again. I'm going to jump in real quick just to get to my items, and then I'll let you go again if you still wish to speak at that point, Ms. Hogan. Is that okay?
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. I wanted to first say I appreciate the update this evening. I think it's important given the circumstances and what's going on around us, that we have timely and informative updates. I appreciate getting the PDE guidance, how that might impact us. It kind of doesn't a whole lot, puts us right where we already knew we were. But I appreciate having that shared with us and with the public. Also, the food service update I think was useful and really good news for a lot of people. The FAQ and parent info packet that is coming out shortly, I think a lot of people will be looking forward to that. It's nice to hear that that is being worked on and is close to being ready to go. Similarly, the demo tonight with Mr. Idle, I greatly appreciate another teacher stepping up to present before the board. I think that's helpful not only for us, but also for anybody that was following along with this meeting. It sounds like, we know the scaffolding plan, and as was just articulated, we've been through this. We voted on the health and safety plan, and I think across the board, people generally agree that it's a well-devised plan. There's a lot of thought put into it. The execution of it is going to come down to us working together, not just the district collaboratively and all of the staff, but also the community and parents and students playing a part in that as well. I appreciate that we're giving the respect and dignity to the staff to go through these requests in an individualized, personal way, because obviously each person's personal circumstances could be different, and I appreciate that those discussions are being had. But that being said, I do think it's important for the administration going forward to make sure that they provide us with updates about the staffing, whether it be teaching or custodial or otherwise. If those continue to increase, I think it's imperative that the board be informed, and also your educational expertise. How is that going to impact us? Can we still successfully and safely carry out the plan as we're planning to? At this point, it sounds like we believe that we have that capability, but it needs to be monitored. And I think that's the important part. It needs to be monitored, and we need to continue to be routinely updated. And that will be an important part of us successfully getting through this. So there's not really a question in there so much as some statements, but I guess the question would be, the request is really that we continue to receive those updates, and that we develop as a team some metrics around how we will navigate that information and interpret it and what it all means. All right, so Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Foos. Respectfully, I am going to say that I think we are heading down a dangerous and disruptive path. This path may lead to 6 children and 6 staff members, and it could very well lower educational outcomes. I am gravely concerned. We can't do 6 feet distancing. We are not social distancing on buses. We are relying on parents to check their children and not send sick children to school, which we know happens every year for various reasons. And that's, I'm not pointing fingers at any parent, but I am gravely concerned. I think, honestly, that we've made a very poor decision, and that we are putting children in harm's way. I really don't know what else to say besides, we lose 60 teachers. The educational outcome, maybe we'll get certified teachers, maybe we'll get teachers that are certified in that subject. And there's no guarantee. It's not, it's not for a lack of anybody's hard work. It's just simply the fact that the market is so competitive. And last year we weren't able to get subs. Last year we were putting high school students into large groups in multi-purpose rooms. So this has been an ongoing problem. And now the market is even more competitive. We have had multiple surrounding districts move to virtual because they don't think they can implement these plans safely. I really don't know what makes us think that we can. I'm very concerned. That concludes my statement. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. I really do want to say that I appreciate all the hard work that have gone into all of these plans. And I know that everyone who has worked on them cares very much for the students. My statement is no reflection on them or on their hard work. Thank you.
All right, I believe we've gone through all the comments on this topic, which will bring us to board comment. So does anybody have any board comment remaining at this time? I see Ms. McWhorter.
Yeah, so this is for the board, the 4th meeting in 8 days. And back in March, when we didn't pass the resolution for the administration to make most of the decisions, we knew that there would be weeks like this. So I just want to appreciate everybody's patience. Thank everyone on the board for their patience to be able to make it to another meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out. I didn't realize it had been that many because they all blend together. I see Ms. Denon and Ms. Hogan. Ms. Denon?
Sorry, Mr. Foos, I just didn't take my hand down. I don't have any further comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. And then next, Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Foos. Last week, a member of this board during a public meeting made a gesture to his head using his thumb and his forefinger to mimic putting a gun to his head. This was done during a presentation regarding teachers requesting information about leave. The actions this board member took were, in my opinion, disrespectful to both teachers and staff of this district and to the community that had to witness it. I would very much like to ask that board member to make a public apology. We have received numerous emails, and there is video of that incident floating around social media. It is embarrassing and it is concerning. Thank you.
All right. So at this time, I don't believe we have any other board comments. I'm going to skip back over to our agenda. All right, next I see upcoming meeting dates. And I believe our next scheduled meeting is 2 weeks, is August 25th. Our meetings continue to be posted on the district website and calendar, so please check there. And obviously we've been adding additional meetings as needed. So please stay tuned
Mr.
as well.
Can I make a quick?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, I feel compelled to make a statement thanking Dr. Benton for his time with us. This is his last board meeting with us with the circumstances. So on behalf of the administration, I'd like to thank him for the 2 years that he's been with us. So I wanted to take a moment to make sure I put that out there.
And I would concur as well. Thank you, Mr. Stout, for bringing that to everyone's attention. Thank you, Dr. Benton. I understand I'll have some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dr. Ben.
I was just saying, thank you.
Yes, well, thank you. I think I don't think we can say it enough. It's been a pleasure. I know as board leadership the past 2 years as vice president and now as president. It's been a pleasure working with you. You're absolutely a professional, and I know when you're in your element with kids and staff, you can really see how you shine and how much this work means to you. So thank you for the time that you spent here, and best of luck going forward. All right, with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I have a comment.
Oh, sorry. I heard. Sorry, I heard background noise and also. What did you say? Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Updegrove.
Yeah, I want to go on record saying that I want to apologize to the board members. I want to apologize to the administration, and I want to apologize to the public on what I did at that board meeting. It was uncalled for. I was frustrated at the way things move along, and I do again, I say I'm sorry, and I apologize to everybody who was offended by it.
All right.
Mr. Foos, may I make a quick comment? Sorry.
Yes. Yep.
I just wanted to thank my colleague for apologizing. I think it's very appreciated. So thank you. That's all.
Sure. Thanks. Yes. Similarly, I'd like to thank my colleague as well. So certainly appreciate the words and the self-reflection, and we'll be back in here trying to do our best work on the 25th or sooner. So please stay tuned. And again, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Ms. Nyman, second, Ms. McWhorter. All right, with that, we are adjourned.